On November 20th is Trans Day of Remembrance, and November 19th is the anniversary of Club Q shooting. We often honor these days by calling out names of lives lost too early due to hate and violence. This year, we want to remember those lives in a different way. We want to bring them forward, what these beautiful souls brought to our lives, and share this with each other and celebrate them. There will be an opportunity for you to participate in this celebration. If you have a loved one or someone whose life you would like to share with us, you will have a chance to do this during the service. We have an altar that invites the spirits of those trans or queer folks who died due to violence, suicide, or illness to visit us by bringing pictures of them and items that are meaningful and to add to the altar.
Today we're celebrating the lives of the 5 individuals we lost in the Club Q shooting, and you'll see their photos up here. The first is Derek Rump. Second, we have Daniel Ashton. Here we have Ashley Paugh, Raymond Green Vance, and Kelly Loving.
Did anyone bring a photo or memento? Now is your time. Or just wants to say the name of a special one.
Derek, for sure.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right, let's start our procession and getting our kalacas. Just paying homage to our ancestors in these beautiful lives. So let's stand and come on down. If you do want to say a name, here's the mic to do so.
These are the names for 2025 in Colorado from Trans Lives Matter: Lily Dawn Harkins, Cam Nguyen, Jax Grattan, Blaze Alexander Ball Mason.
Don't forget to take a kalacas.
I'm going to also honor my dad, who this is the anniversary of his death. And he was not trans or queer, but he was my first social justice teacher. And I miss him a bunch. He died in 2018 on this day. And I also want to honor our friend, our precious friend, Ernie Pico.
What's your dad's name?
My dad's name is Perry. Perry Owen.
And this is in honor of my friend, Blue Eagle Wooldridge, whom I knew since 1971, and who passed much too soon. early last spring.
I'd like to honor my friend Javier Mina and my great uncle John Merrigan.
It's good to have you here this morning. I'd like to honor my mother, Joyce Fletcher, and my father, Sidney Fletcher. They're finally together.
My student Mitchell Mangum dead at suicide at 18 because he was gay.
Phyllis.
This is not a deceased person. This is my trans grandchild, Jojo Sargent.
International Trans Day of Remembrance started in 1999 when transgender advocate Gwendolyn Ann Smith was grieving the murder of a trans woman in her community. She was saddened that people had not remembered Chanelle Pickett's murder in 1995, when Rita Hester was violently killed in 1998 in the same area and in the same month, just those few years later. Gwendolyn Ann Smith started a website called Remembering Our Dead, where she compiled information about deaths caused by transphobic and homophobic violence, sharing their stories and hoping to prevent the erasure of trans people who had been victims of anti-trans violence. Today, multiple websites track the deaths of trans and gender diverse people around the world, including the Trans Lives Matter site, from which I found the names that were there earlier. May they rest in power. So who was Chanelle Pickett that inspired this Day of Remembrance? Chanelle Pickett was described by her twin sister as high-spirited and confident, full of life and many goals. Chanelle is on the right in the picture, and her twin sister Gabrielle is on the left. Chanelle and Gabrielle transitioned medically and socially together. They were born in 1972 and described being interested in putting on makeup at age 5. When they told their mother that they were girls at around age 13, they were kicked out of the house and went to live in a foster home. Here they blossomed and were very popular in school. Chanelle tells about how well they did in school, where their classmates accepted them as girls, and they were very popular. She and her sister bravely shared their story on the Jenny Jones and Geraldo shows when they were 19 and 20 years old. Their story reminds us of how the lives of trans and gender diverse people are often thriving when their identities are affirmed and valued. Recent research shows that transgender and non-binary young people of color with high levels of family support have a 34% lower odds of attempting suicide in the past year, and those with high levels of support from friends and an accepting community had a 28% lower odds. Community matters. Support matters. In 1993, Chanelle and Gabrielle moved to the Boston area and got an apartment in the Chelsea Manhattans. In Chelsea, Massachusetts. Whoa, okay. The sisters lived a quiet life and worked for NYNEX, an American telephone company in Brooklyn, Massachusetts. After being outed as transgender in the workplace, Chanelle was harassed by a supervisor for many weeks and then fired in February 1995. She was murdered that same year at the age of 23. Her legacy lives on when we honor and celebrate the lives of trans and gender diverse people, missing and murdered Indigenous Two-Spirit people who have died due to hate and violence. May she rest in power.
My name is Kai Brown, and my pronouns are they, them. And for those of you that do not know me, I serve as the music director here at All Souls. Today we gather holding many names in our hearts, names spoken names whispered, and names that live on in the morrow within our communities. And among those names is one that glows like a candle that many refuse to let go out: Skylar. Skylar was a bright light in a dark world. And that isn't something I say lightly. They had a quiet, grounding warmth about them, a way of making people feel seen, heard, and welcomed exactly as they were. In the Denver queer community, many of us felt that just being around them made the world feel a little more bearable. Skylar was also part of a queer house that we called the House of Khrist. It was spelled Khrist, which was a queer house. And for those who may not be familiar, queer houses are a kind of chosen family originating in the LGBTQ+ and ballroom culture, but found across many queer communities today. These houses form when people, especially those who haven't always found acceptance in their families of origin, come together to create networks of care, support, mentorship, and belonging. They are places where people lift each other up and learn who they truly are. And while the House of Khrist no longer exists as a formal group, Skylar's light continues in all of us who loved them. In fact, their non-binary identity helped me step fully into my own authentic self, which gave me language, courage, and permission to live authentically in a way I hadn't yet embraced. Their life opened something in me that continues to shape who I am becoming. And then came 2020. We remember what that time felt like, how the world shut down, how isolation stretched on endlessly, and how many of us lost the daily connections that give life meaning. For queer and trans people especially, who rely on community for survival as much as belonging, these months were unbearably heavy. It was in the middle of that isolation, in July of 2020, that Skylar took their own life. Their death broke something open within us. There was grief, there was anger, there was the weight of helplessness, there was that ache of, if only we could have reached them. And yet, even in that dark moment, our community responded in the way humans always do when love is stronger than fear. We showed up for one another. Even masked, even distanced, even unsure of how to gather safely, we found ways to honor Skylar. We held outdoor memorials, small circles of people standing beneath the open sky, remembering their laughter, their kindness, their way of being. And at Cheesman Park, a historic gathering place for Denver's LGBTQ+ community, there was a tree planted in Skylar's honor. A tree is an act of defiance. A tree is an act of hope. A tree is a promise that life will continue to rise, even in the shadow of profound loss. That tree still stands in a park layered with many histories, joyful, painful, complicated, and sacred. And maybe that's fitting, because queer and trans people have always grown beauty out of complicated soil. We have always created life, connection, and community in places where it wasn't always safe and easy to do so. Every time someone walks past that tree, every time they sit beneath its shade or notice its branches reaching upward, Skylar's spirit continues its quiet work. Their light continues in memory, in love, in the people who carry pieces of them inside them. On this day of remembrance, we honor those taken by violence. And we also hold close those taken by despair, by isolation, and by systems that failed them. Skylar did not leave because they lacked strength. They left because the world had not yet learned how to make enough room for every trans person to thrive. But their story does not end in 2020. Their story continues in the people they loved. It continues in the lessons they taught us, lessons about identity, authenticity, and courage. It continues in the tree that bears their name, reaching toward the sun. It continues in communities, queer, straight, mixed, spiritual, secular, that choose to show up for one another with compassion. And we remember Skylar with many others today. May their memories be a blessing. May their light continue to guide us. And may we recommit ourselves to building a world where every trans person is safe, is supported, and most of all celebrated, not just remembered. Ashe, and may it be so.
Good morning. Now you're going to hear from a mom. My name is Susanna. My pronouns are she, her. And my daughter, Tori, was trans. She no longer is with us on Earth. She died by suicide in 2023. When Dale and Julia asked if I would participate in today's service, by sharing something about Tori, my mind went to the first time that Tori shared with me what Trans Day of Remembrance is. I hadn't realized how bad it was. The attacks and murders of trans people simply for being trans. Mostly trans women of color, and no end in sight. As a trans woman herself, Tori knew that she had a bit more security as a white person, and she wanted to be an ally to this group. She recognized her own privilege, and she also had the benefit of having the support of her family. The financial stability to transition to a point of eventually passing as a cis woman, that was important to her, and the energy and know-how to update her birth certificate, her passport, and her military records. The Day of Trans Remembrance is about transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people who have lost their lives to violence, hate, and discrimination. Many people are still not aware that this day exists, unfortunately, but Tori brought this home for me. Like many survivors of suicide loss, our family was full of questions. Did Tori's suicide have anything to do with being trans? We didn't think so. She was clearly a woman and more comfortable after she came out. But that doesn't negate what Kai just spoke of. Was Tori a victim of verbal and nonverbal abuse as a trans woman? Yes, unfortunately, this showed up in blatant and subtle ways. Did she fear for her safety as a trans woman? Yes, she had to consider where she could go and what places to avoid. But there were other elements to her life that later led to her suffering. We will never know what truly caused the mental illness that led to her death. She was also a veteran. She was part of a group who also has a high risk of suicide. Today, though, I'm grateful to share a little about Tori's life. She was part of a community for which she was proud of and loved. She challenged me to push myself to be a more active ally to all marginalized groups, not just this one. But this is the group we're honoring today. I remember a phone call from Tori a few months after she came out as trans. She called me to tell me that she went out for the day in Denver. She was in her late 20s, and she was happier than I had heard in years. The joy coming through the phone was due to the fact that she had, for the very first time, went out in public as she herself, her true self, by herself. She normally didn't go out in public without her big brother to keep her safe, but that day she had. She felt the joy of being part of the queer community, out and proud. And I admire the LGBTQIA plus people who can demonstrate to straight and cis people what it means to be out and proud. Some of us take it for granted. As is true about all transgender people we remember and celebrate today, Tori was more than trans. She was a 37-year-old woman, and like many people, had her ups and downs. She served as an Army medic and saved many lives. After that, she focused on multiple projects in her efforts as an entrepreneur. She was a licensed drone pilot and a photographer. She also spent a lot of free time volunteering and attending protests. She volunteered with the NAACP to record meetings and provide audiovisual footage for events. And as a friend, she helped other trans people through difficult hurdles. She was the big sister to many who needed family after their family had turned them away. Tori recognized that this subset of our community, trans people, need to be accepted by everyone, not just supporters at the pride parades. One Mother's Day, she and my mom, her Nana and I, went out to lunch, and she gave us each a card that was purchased at a gift shop owned by a Christian organization that is known for opposing people who are trans. She said she went there to interact and meet with people who dispute her existence. How can they hate a person in person? I don't know if she changed anyone's heart that day, but every effort does count. I think if she were here, she would be glad that we are honoring and remembering our trans loved ones who died, and very relieved that we continue to look for ways to support those who are feeling unsafe and targeted now. As the mom of a trans child and a friend to many other wonderful, beautiful trans people, I see the struggles and pain that they endure. I have felt continued support from this community, this All Souls community. I know that on the day after an election that brought in lawmakers intent on removing the rights of trans people, I was lifted up when Lynn Casbear spoke, and she shared that she is the mom of a trans child, and I hadn't known that. I suddenly felt not alone. This church also brought a lot of love and support. When we lost Tori, she had come here a few times and she was familiar. And when I thought about where we could gather to grieve her, I called, and there were some beautiful people here that helped us get through that. And then I sat in these pews for weeks after that, grieving, but also feeling comforted by everybody here and the words and the music that I listened to. Each of us can connect to make this group safer. To do this, we must keep challenging everyone to show that just because people don't present as you expect doesn't mean that they are not to be respected. This sounds so simple, but somehow we need to teach this. Many of us have the safety and power to do this in small ways with many interactions, and as a nurse, I have had a lot of those opportunities. Tori loved people and wanted us to be better. She wanted to be a helper. She earned a degree in psychology, and she was an avid reader and a lover of history. She read about the cultures and regimes in our Western society that brought us to this way of thinking that society has now. She was good at pointing out, I have to get water. Sorry. She was good at pointing out what my generation normalized. You can imagine being a straight cis teenager in this country in the suburbs in the 70s and in the 80s. And some of you don't have to imagine. We othered people who were not straight and cisgender. It is gut-wrenching to think about and even more difficult to say. As much as I love to talk about Tori, this is not about my beautiful daughter. It is about the 60-year-old trans woman who comes out after decades of discomfort despite her fear of rejection. It is about the 17-year-old teenager who is waiting to turn 18 so that they can make their own decisions to affirm their identity. And it's about the veteran who lost their career after years of honorable service just because they're trans. But it's also about the 6-year-old who tells everyone she's a girl and gets unconditional love and support from her parents and her teachers, even though she was assigned male at birth. There is hope. We hear a lot about the fact that trans people make up less than 1% of the population. And while that may be true, we should also remember that they have friends and family that increase that number by far when we stand with them. When a person comes out as trans, their family is faced with a kind of coming out too. Not nearly as difficult, not nearly as difficult. But they have things to work through as well. Every time I ran into an old friend and they would ask me, how are the boys? I was faced with a decision about revealing that Tori is trans. And I usually did, and I still do. She deserves that respect. And with each conversation, that a person gains more understanding, and some of my friends have also become vocal allies. I often hear people say, you don't have to understand being trans, you just have to respect them. And while that's true to some degree, I think that we have the ability to understand more than we give ourselves credit for. I would like to see the bar of understanding and acceptance raised. I had a steep learning curve, and I feel blessed to have had Tori in my life, as well as trans friends and acquaintances to motivate me to understand. It's not on them, it was for me to figure it out. And they motivated me, and I'm still working on it. We can all raise the bar of understanding. If you're wondering how, there are a number of excellent books, podcasts, and films written by and featuring trans and non-binary people. I can recommend some, as well as the All Souls Q community. In these times, we are breaking out of the habit of expecting people to be in a neat little box. Young people do this better than some of us. Recently, we witnessed local high schoolers staging walkouts and speaking up at the school board meetings when the rights of LGBTQIA+ students are being challenged. There is hope. We are celebrating and remembering all trans people today, and we can make it better one soul at a time. Thank you. And this is Tori. She also loved pets. Thank you.
Thank you for these brave ones sharing their personal stories. So grateful, because the closer it is to us, the more we realize the reality of what is happening in lives that we know. I heard a new word the other day, hypernormalization. Hypernormalization happens when we go about our regular life as if everything is normal while horrific things are happening daily and being normalized in the way our larger culture works, with devastating consequences. One key to living through what we are experiencing is to stay awake and aware and take some kind of action each day, no matter how small, to confront what is happening. Because every small action locally adds up to all kinds of actions that move a nation forward. We all know we are not living in regular times, and we know the state of things for especially our trans friends. It's dire for them right now. Under this current federal administration, the targeting of trans folks has been particular and marked, removing them from the military, removing them from school sports, using them as a community to rally the public against an entity, right? Ultimately, I think hoping to wipe out their existence because they challenge the status quo. All people are not just male and female. There's so much variety. There's such a spectrum. Like, can we all just wake up? Trans folks have been here. They've always been here. They'll always be here. Queer folks too. We must not underestimate how crucial it is for our congregation to give support like we are giving right now, for you to sit in witness of these stories and allow them to change your heart. That is doing something. Here we are standing in witness to these loved ones. And may that lead you into some step of activism in the future. So that being said, I'd like to let all the queer and trans people in this room, and there are many of you, I see you, like to let you know that we have started an LGBTQIA2+ affinity group. And there's no allies in that group, it's just us. Myself and a trans man named Grayson, who I don't think is here, is coming to the 11 o'clock service, are facilitating. We've only had one meeting. So if you'd like to be on, we have a private confidential email list, and none of our meetings are in public view. So if you'd like to know when and where, the next time we're meeting is next Sunday afternoon, December 7th. Just come to me and I'll add your name to that confidential list. Or you can email me. I'm at Rev Julia McKay, MCKAY, @gmail.com. So Rev Julia McKay @gmail. And that's just a place for us to gather together, as Kai was saying, to support one another, to build some kind of mass of care for one another. And it's also a space without allies, because even allies sometimes say things, do things that we're not aware are actually hurting. So this is a time for queer folks to come together and be safe together, queer and trans folks. So I'm glad our congregation is doing this. That's a step, right, in taking action. So now, as sad as we feel, these lives have touched our lives. They've brought us joy. They will continue to bring us joy and uplift as we move forward into our world. But may this service touch something in you that allows you to go and do. So in that joy, in that sense of joy and power gathered here, we're gathering power by doing this. In that power, let us sing our closing song today, and I welcome you to stand.